Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third lesson on the subject Understanding the Self. Today, we'll be focusing on understanding the anthropological self. And to start with, let us first define the word Filipino. Now, in most dictionaries, the term Filipino is defined as belonging or relating to the Philippines or to its people and culture. From this definition, we can say that the people living in the Philippines are called Filipino. Another definition in the context of citizenship, Filipino simply means membership in a state nation. In the Constitution, a citizen is someone who legally resides in the country. So those who are naturally born in the Philippines are called Filipino, and they are citizens of the Philippines. Now, let's look at the anthropological definition of Filipino. It is not just limited to legal association to a country, but it entails a responsibility to live and protect the country's cherished values. Now, this means to belong and relate to culture, means to adopt, accept, and treasure its entire way of life. Therefore, in order to be called Filipino anthropologically, you have to belong to the Filipino people and adopt their culture. In this perspective, the self must be embedded in the culture. Okay? Now, to understand further, let us define what anthropology is. Anthropology is the study of all aspects of the human condition. This includes human history, the present human condition, and even future possibilities. Now, it is also considered the science of humanity, which studies human beings in aspects ranging from the biology and evolutionary history of Homo sapiens to the features of society and culture that decisively distinguish humans from other animal species. Now, under anthropology, there are two important factors that affects ourselves or that shapes and develops ourselves. One is nature and the other is nurture. Now, anthropology considers human experience as an interplay of nature and nurture. And when we talk about nature, this refers to the genetic inheritance. This is something that is passed on from the parents to the offspring. Some of these characteristics or example include our skin color. Okay, most Filipinos are brown in color. Okay, while Americans are mostly white. So that is something that we genetically inherit. Another one is, of course, our height. Okay, some are short, some are tall. The type of our hair, some are kinky, and the others are straight. So this is something that we inherit from birth. Okay, and when we talk about nurture, this refers to the social cultural environment. So these are the social factors and the cultural factors surrounding us. Now, our self is mostly influenced by nature and nurture. Now, there is actually a question whether is it really nature or nurture that greatly influence us or that greatly influence the development of ourselves. Now, the answer here is both. Okay, both, because the moment we were born, there is actually that inherited attributes or inherited characteristics that's already in us. However, it is with the help of nature that we develop what we have nurtured or what we have inherited. Okay, so these two factors are crucial in the development of our self. Now, this time, let's look at the cultural construction of self and identity. And let's begin by defining the word culture. Culture is derived from the Latin word cultura or cultus, meaning care or cultivation. In the cultural context, we both have, okay, personal identity and collective identity. Now, when we talk about personal identity, this is the way he or she sees himself or herself as an individual, meaning this is how we view ourselves. This is our opinion about ourselves. When we talk about collective identity, this is the way he or she sees himself or herself as a member of a certain group. Okay, so you have an identity, whether it's personal or collective. Okay, and again, when we say personal, this is more of your personal view, your opinion about yourself, and under collective identity, this is how you're viewed in relation to the group you belong. All right. Now, identity, on the other hand, refers to who the person is or the qualities and traits of an individual that make him or her different from others. Okay, simply put, identity also refers to the unique traits of a person. Okay, these are the traits and characteristics that makes you unique. So when we, for example, when they say Sir JJ, okay, what are the traits and characteristics that define you? Okay, and these are some of the things that makes you unique. All right. Now, let's try to combine culture and identity. So when we talk about cultural identity, is self-identification, a sense of belonging to a group that reaffirms itself. It is dynamic and constantly evolving. So simply put, okay, when we talk about cultural identity, this is your identity as a member of a certain community, a certain group. Let's say, for example, if you belong to the indigenous group or you belong to a certain tribe, that is your cultural identity. But remember that cultural identity is evolving over time. Okay, depending on the certain situation and scenario, because there are times, for example, when students have to be relocated or they have to go to other places when they start going to universities, for example. And in that case, the people that they will meet in the future will have a massive impact on their personality. Okay? Now, in social anthropology, the context of identity was used mostly in the context of ethnic identity, pointing out the sameness of the self with others, that is, to a consciousness of sharing certain characteristics, as for example, language, culture, which includes how you behave, how you dress yourself, okay, some of the activities and some of the beliefs that you have in relation to the group where you belong. Okay, so that is social anthropology. Now, two ways in which the concept of self is viewed in different societies. We have the egocentric view and the social-centric view. Let's begin with the egocentric view. The self is seen as an autonomous and distant individual, meaning each person is defined as a replica of all humanity, but capable of acting independently from others. So, meaning you have this autonomy, you are independent, and that despite the fact that you belong to a certain community or to a certain group, you still have your own capability, your own choice, your own uniqueness, and this what makes you different from others. Okay, and despite, let's say, for example, you belong to the Zarate family or you belong to the Fernandez family, there's still this attribute that makes you unique as an individual. Okay, another is social-centric view. Under the social-centric view, the self is contingent on a situation or social setting, meaning this is a view of the self that is context dependent, which emphasizes that there is no intrinsic self that can possess enduring qualities. Okay, so this particular part or this particular concept of the self has something to do with the society where you belong, the social settings, the situations that greatly affects you as an individual. Okay, now let's talk about forming cultural identity. Okay, first, forming a cultural identity involves making choices, okay, about the cultures one identifies with and deciding to join the cultural community. Remember, I've mentioned we all have a choice, and we all have a choice whether which group we wanted to belong. Okay, and of course, when we make these choices, we have to identify where we mostly belong to, where we mostly identify ourselves with. Okay, the feeling of belongingness is very much important when it comes to forming a cultural identity, and our choices makes up or define our beliefs and practices that somehow define who we are. Another one, under forming cultural identity, remember that one's identity is not inborn. Okay, meaning it is something that you continuously develop over time. um, as I've mentioned earlier, uh, your identity, your personality is evolving over time. It is dynamic. It changes depending on the people you associate yourself with, the community or the institution you belong. Even your workplace later on can greatly affect your identity. Now, for instance, there is a rite of passage usually involved in ritual activities to prepare individuals for new roles from one stage of life to another, such as birth, puberty, marriage, having children, and death. So these are crucial stages in our life that have massive impact in our life. For example, from the time you begin puberty, that's the time people expects you to be more mature. And until such time that you find your own job, you settle, and eventually find your partner. Another stage is when you are married. Okay, and when you're married, there's another expectation. There's a whole new chapter, a whole new life waiting for you. So one's identity is not inborn, it is dynamic and it is evolving. Okay, now there are three phase rite of passage according to Arnold van Gennep. Okay, one is separation phase, liminality phase, and incorporation phase. Now, under Arnold van Gennep believes that changes in one's status and identity are marked by three phase rite of passage. Okay, now under the separation phase, people detach from their former identity to another. Now, what does this mean? Example is during a wedding where the bride walking down the aisle to be given away by the parents to the groom implies the separation from one's family to become part of a new one. So that is detaching yourself from the other. Okay, when you, for example, begin to get married, of course, you are facing your own life with another partner. Although you are not fully detached from your family, especially in the Filipino context, okay, where we there is a strong Filipino ties. But the point here is that you are going to start your own family. Okay, and that you are detaching yourself from your former identity. Let's say if you're former single, you have a lot of freedom, that you have certain attributes and characteristics that you have to tone down or sometimes remove because of the new identity, or the new chapter that's awaiting you. Okay, the second phase is the liminality phase. Okay, a person transitions from one identity to another. So there is the key word here is transition. All right. Example, during the wedding ceremony itself, it is a process of transition from the bride and groom from singlehood to married life. So that's the transition. Again, separation phase, from that word detach. You detach yourself from your previous group, which is your family. Okay, but in liminality, you simply transition from one stage to another, from singlehood to married life. The last one is incorporation phase. Under incorporation phase, the change in one's status is officially incorporated. Now, the change in one's status, okay, remember that. Example, again, let's start with the wedding. Let's still use the wedding. The wedding reception and parties that celebrate the wedding serves as the marker that officially recognize the bride and groom. Okay, so the reception, the parties, okay, those are somehow, okay, the markers, or those are the signs, okay, that you officially recognize yourself as a husband and wife. Okay, now, moving on, let's go to the properties of cultural identity according to Jane Collier and Milt Thomas. Okay. Number one, avowal and ascription. Avowal is how one articulates or expresses his or her views about group identity. It is how one presents oneself to another. Okay, while ascription is how others perceive an individual. Okay, it is how one refers to others. This may include stereotypes. Okay, examples: how Asians are viewed by Europeans. So that's avowal and ascription. So let me repeat: when you say avowal, this is how you express yourself. Okay, this are uh this is how you show who you are. Okay, um again, the keyword there is expresses his or her views about a group of or identity. This is how you view a certain group. Let's say when you're asked to describe an indigenous group. Okay, and how you present yourself to another people. Okay, when we say ascription, it is how you perceive um, another group. One refers to others. Okay, Now, our identity is constructed as a result of how others view us and how we view ourselves. Therefore, both avowal and ascription are important. Now, example, insiders describe their culture different from how it is perceived by others. So, those who belong, let's say, to the indigenous group may have a different definition or have a different view of themselves as compared to those around them, to those outside of that group. Okay. Avowed qualities versus ascribed qualities lead to conflict, but resolutions depend on the status position of the members. Another is modes of expression. Okay, the use of core symbols, expressions of a group's cultural beliefs and theories about the world around them. Okay, it includes names, labels, and the norms, meaning expected standard of behavior that a cultural community share and follow in order to show that they belong to a particular group. Demonstrates shared identity. Okay, when you belong to a certain group, there is this specific attribute that somehow uh, could allow the people around you identify that you belong to that particular group. Let's say, for example, I am from Pangasinan. Most Pangasinenses are known to have a hard E. Okay, let's say, for example, when they pronounce instead of saying they pronounce it as E. Okay, so instead of saying E, they pronounce it as eh. Okay, so example, um, the word petal, instead of saying petal, they say it petal. Okay, ital. Okay, e. Okay, another one is our Pangasinenses have this mannerism of saying uy. Okay, uy. I have a Japanese friend, and one particular uh, one particular identity that they have when they speak is the use of ano. Okay, so they have that mannerisms. Okay, verbal filler, as what they call it. Okay, so those are some examples of the modes of expression. Okay, another one is individual, relational, and communal identity. There are three components of cultural identity. One is individual, refers to how an individual interprets his cultural identity based on his experiences. So this is on a personal level. Okay, and it is somehow related to your own experiences living in that particular group. Okay, acting out those beliefs, those norms, and those traditions. Okay, when you say relational, refers to how individuals interact with one another. So from the word relationship, okay, this is somehow uh, this cultural identity is affected by relationships and interactions. Okay, and sometimes we adopt our behavior depending on whom we are talking with. Okay, depending on the people we belong or the people that we are associated with. Okay, so there are times when you talk, of course, when you talk to your friends, it's more casual, right? But when you talk to your teacher or to your boss, it's more formal. All right. And communal identity, on the other hand, is the use of communication in the creation, affirmation, and negotiation of shared identity. Okay, so again, this is the use of communication in the creation, affirmation, and negotiation of shared identity. Okay. The next one is enduring and changing aspects of identity. Now, the cultural identity changes due to several factors, which are social, political, economic, and contextual. Okay. Again, remember that our social cultural environment greatly affects our self. Okay, and our views, our behavior changes depending on our social groups, our political groups, our economic status, and even depending on the context of what we are doing, what we are sharing, what we are living as of the moment. Okay. Next one, we have affective, cognitive, and behavioral aspects of identity. Now, this refers to emotions fully attached to cultural identity in particular situations. Okay. Next, we have content and relationship levels. Now, this refers to the interaction between two or more individuals. The message exchange carries information or content. The participants of the conversation interpret the choice and meanings of the words based on their experiences. Okay, again, this is more on relational and based on the context of what you're talking about. Okay, next is salience or prominence. This is the degree to which an identity is demonstrated in a situation and refers to how much person's cultural identity stands out and attracts attention. All right. Now, moving on, okay, Clifford Geertz, an American anthropologist, offers the reformulation of the concept of culture, which favors a symbolic interpretative model of culture. Okay, now here are the two important ideas of Geertz. One is that culture should not be perceived only as complexes or of concrete behavior patterns, customs, usages, traditions, habit clusters for the governing behavior. Okay, and the second one is man is precisely the animal most desperately dependent upon such extra genetic outside the skin control mechanisms such as cultural programs for ordering his or her behavior. Now, Gertz also emphasized that the human nature is interdependent with culture. Without man, no culture, certainly. But equally and more significantly, without culture, no man. All right. So that is the end of the our discussion on the anthropological self. I hope that this lesson help enabled you or and empowered you and helped you identify or learn more about yourself in the anthropological context. See you again next time.